Welcome back. Dan and I decided, you know what? The first time was so good, and we had some great feedback on all of the LinkedIn tips. How do you grow your network? How do you create content that actually converts into conversations? And ultimately, and how do you build something that's more than just a profile? I always say is you actually have a presence online that attracts your ideal customers and clients to you. You're not just one of those profiles that exists out there to stock up your resume and accomplishments over the year. You're actually somebody that shows up on LinkedIn and uses what I believe is the full power that's there. So Dan and I, we covered a lot of that on the first one. If you haven't listened to the first episode, kind of webinar that we did last month, I'll include a link in here so you can check it out. And if you're joining us and you were on that one, you know that we're just going to build off that. And many of you asked about, hey guys, like how do you create content in today's world to break through some of the noise, to actually convert into conversations, which is what we want. And ultimately, we hope we have conversations that then lead to some business, that we can help people, we can serve people. And in the end, wouldn't it be great if you had enough people you were attracting in to your funnel and your ecosystem, building relationships, that your content converted and it just showed up when you weren't even there. And I think about, Dan, you've done this, man. I'll give you a shout out, is the way that you've come onto the scene. And I just thought about this as we were prepping for today, is like, you weren't even really on my radar a year ago, right? Like, didn't really know what you're doing, kind of knew you and all that. And then now, like, you're one of my favorite people. I jump on, I'm like, what's Dan doing?
Yeah. Same, man. Same.
Yeah, dude, that's what we want to create today. So if you're listening in, that's the power of what's there, is how do you become somebody that people cannot ignore, they're attracted to, and that they actually want to engage with. And Dan, I'd love your thoughts on that, man, because I see a lot of content out there. I think some are doing it well, some feel forced, some of it's just not good. And we want to help you guys.
Yeah. I man, first off, love hanging and talking about this with you. Number 2 on the LinkedIn mortgage LinkedIn accounts to follow on Brian View's list. And so honored to be sitting next to you on this screen here. But yeah, man, you've been doing it right for a long time. And I think that there's so much value in it and so much opportunity for people that if we can just get over the whole fact that it's like social media and like kind of what we've historically viewed it as, and really just like start seeing it as like, this is an opportunity to build our pipeline, drive revenue in like the best way possible, right? Not annoying people, not cold calling. Like, this can be a better experience literally for both sides of the sales process, right? The person getting sold to and the person who is actually selling. So that's the goal, man. That's the dream.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because we see some things probably going on today. And I love starting with maybe what not to do, right? Because I think for a lot of people, we can jump in, okay, this is what you do. And they're like, okay, this is awesome. But if we can't really eliminate the things, I always think about, like, if I'm going to go on my health journey, I always kind of use that as like, I don't know what to eliminate out of there. I may go do all these things, but if I'm still doing these other things that aren't working, they might be fighting each other. It's like this battle that exists. So what are the things out there that maybe people are not thinking about with content? It's like, hey, let's not do this. This isn't what's working, and you probably know it's not working, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a few things, right? Like so the easy one is there's two sides of this, right? Like, AI is one big thing where I wouldn't just like generate a normal AI post and then just copy and paste it directly in. Like that's a quick way to be spotted. A lot of people now pick up on that it's ChatGPT, and yes, it's easier, but there's also better ways to do it so that your content can get seen more. The other thing is just like randomly posting, like just sitting down and without a strategy, without a plan, without knowing who they're speaking to, and just like just firing something off. Now, if you fire something off, but you know who your audience is, and you've like really worked on like understanding who they are, their problems and those things, then fire it off, go for it. But like, if you don't know who it is you're reaching, really nobody's going to identify with that post that you have. So, and then the third thing I would say is just like, we don't, if we want to like generate business and sales, then I would just say, let's push pause. You don't have to get rid of it, but like the automated corporate posts, like we can go ahead and just push pause on those for a little bit. Unless, I mean, it shows that you are alive for sure, which is, I think, the original reason people gravitated toward that. It's really just it's an easier way to do it, right? So automation can either be a good thing or a bad thing. And so like just getting back to the basics, which is like understanding that LinkedIn, social media has humans on the other side, and we want to speak to those people that we want to do business with in a real authentic way, like we would in person. So we tend to do things online that we don't do in person. And so being able to kind of remove ourselves from that is important.
And I love that. And I'm guilty of years and years ago. I remember I was the one, like, just had it automated, right? Whatever CRM we were using, you just automatically post it. And can I tell you, I got 0 engagement from anybody that did not work at my company. Like, nobody came on and like, I love that you're talking about that doctor program, or like that new low down payment option, or like, that really got me excited today. That post,
right?
I mean, I remember it from like a year ago when you posted it, and clearly being sarcastic, but I share that because it's like, if you want to be remembered and you actually want to create a strong online personal brand, which I think, Rory Vaden says this, it's the digitization of your reputation, right? Like, people were to look through your post and your content, what would they think? And so, Dan, you've talked about that as just the psychology, being intentional about posting. If somebody's listening to this, they're like, dude, I mean, that all makes sense, right? Like, I know I don't need to copy and paste from chat. Okay. I don't need to do the company stuff over there. I need a strategy. I don't need to randomly post about, hey, some random thought that came across my brain. Unless my audience, like you said, like, maybe it does resonate, but how do people start to figure out what their goals are? What should they be thinking about content strategy that maybe would help them in that process?
Yeah. So, like I said, like, I think the first part is to understand who your audience is, like who you're actually trying to speak to, right? So like, if I use the example of, if you're a loan officer, you're trying to have a conversation with a first-time home buyer compared to someone that's doing investment properties. Those are two completely different conversations, right? Like the fears are different, the experience completely different, right? You have one group that has not ever done a mortgage, and so they have a lot of fears, and they don't know what the process is, and they don't know what the fees are, and they don't know that there's more than the down payment required, and there's all of these things that they have to overcome. And so their pain points are different than the investor who's coming to you. The investor's like, been there, done that. I know it. Like, I know how to do this. Like, they're worried about, down payment requirements, or how many properties they can do at one time, or, whatever it is. But it's not what is the process. Like, I'm fearful of what I don't know, because they know quite a bit. Yeah. So when you're having a conversation with those are two completely different audiences. That's why it's important to know your audience. But it's like the image where your content kind of lies in between where somebody currently is and where they want to go. And in between, there is this like gap, right, that they can't jump over. There needs to be some kind of bridge, and your content is that bridge, right? And so you're trying to help somebody, like, this is where I am, and I look off in the distance, I can see where I want to be. It's up for us who are already there or know how to get there to, with our content, bridge that gap and allow them an easy way over, and understanding, how to get the home, or how to, find success on LinkedIn, whatever it is, right? Like, you're the one with the knowledge, and you're giving it to them. So I think understanding that audience, and then understanding that your content is not just this random thing, but instead your content is there to help them get to the other side.
I love that. One of my coaches always says, the greatest thing you can do as a coach or a leader and everything is everybody has a point A they're at, and they want to get to that point B. And I love you share that. And it's like, there's this gap in between, that if people had the right information organized correctly, I always say, is like, most of us have the right information. We know how to get in better shape. We know how to generate more sales. We know how to do these things, but it maybe is just not organized and a strategy behind it. My mind goes to that as you're sharing that. And it's like, okay, so people start to write this stuff out, and they're like, this is where I am. This is the people I can help. This is my targeted, like, avatar audience that's there. Is there anything you would do research-wise? Because I always think about, like, before I call somebody, potentially, like in my world, like a lot of recruiting and business development, mean, I'm on social. I'm like, who are they? What's their family dynamic? What are their sports teams? Like, where do they go to college? Like anything I can find out about them. Is there research once you've identified this targeted audience that you're talking to that you would suggest people go learn about them before they just, hey, you know what? I think first time home buyers would love to hear about this.
Yeah. I think it's a great question. I think, I do think there's varying degrees of that, right? So with, let's just keep with the first time home buyer or any kind of like specific segment of buyer. You have, typically you don't just like make up a niche. Like sometimes you do, right? But like what happens a lot of times is that like you notice patterns of more people in this certain category who are using you, and it's usually because of referrals and whatnot. But if you think about like, I know a lot of former veterans who now they just focus on VA loans, and I think that's awesome, right? They understand it. Those are their people, and so like that audience comes natural. So for others, it's like really, it doesn't have to be product based. It could even be like location based. I'm in Dallas, Texas, right? So like maybe I'm the Dallas lender, and everybody in the community that I'm involved in is like, this is my community. I want to very specifically target people, companies, in this area. So I think there's a number of ways to go about it. It's just, it's worth the time. And it's really just foundational for what you want to do. Like whether that be content creation, engaging, DMs, all of those things, so foundational to be able to know that audience and to put the work into figuring it out. So like sometimes as a way to do this, I like, this is one of those things that I'm like really cool with using AI for, right? Because AI can kind of brainstorm with you. And so it's like, hey, like help me figure out who my ideal audience is or can be. And then, start creating content buckets. So like as soon as you identify it, you can ask ChatGPT like, hey, in content marketing, there's something called content pillars. And so you can say, hey, give me some of the main topics that I should focus on in my content for this audience. And so ChatGPT can absolutely give you hours and hours and days back on what would normally be a lengthy process. So definitely, I would say utilize some of that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we just had this example, by the way, and I was coaching one of our branch managers here at Revolution, and he was asking me, what should he do? He wanted to grow his business and double his business into last year. We started looking at like, what do you do really well? What do people come to you for? What are you known for? What do you enjoy doing? And all this. And we actually niched down. We did go down the DSCR route. And he's like, man, nobody really does this. And like, I really enjoy investors. And I like people like in this world. Like I like talking that, like I'm an investor myself. And I was like, that's your jam, man. Like that's what you do. So then we built the content pillars around it. And to your point, we started to figure out what are their pain points? What are the issues that they have? What are maybe some of the things they don't know that they should know? Like someone comes to you like, oh, I didn't know I only had to put that down, or I didn't know, I thought the rates were double that, like for that loan, or just whatever it is. I was like, what are they struggling with? And we created all that. And literally, Dan, in a year, doubled his production with that one program. He's telling me yesterday, he's going through it. I'm like, hold on, you actually did all that stuff? Like I saw you doing. He's like, oh yeah. And then we're going to do it again this year. So I share all that to go, if you're really good at something and known for something, and you're passionate about it, whatever your niche is, I have found doing more of that thing that you're already great at and known for is faster than going, hey, you know what, Dan, you've never done a one-time close construction loan, right? Or you've never really worked with financial advisors, but hey, let's just go over here to this whole new world that you don't know, understand, don't even know if you like it or not, and start creating content for those audiences.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
deeper.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you think about it, I think you and I would look at that and be like, of course, you outline a plan like that. You have an audience, you know how to reach them. You're in that world. I'm like, of course he's going to double. Like I would look at that and be like, of course that's the result. And a lot of people think whenever I niche down, it's excluding all of this extra business. And the reality time and time again is that as soon as you niche down, your message goes from, trying to reach everyone, which we've I'm sure heard the common marketing quote where it says, if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one.
Yeah.
But as soon as you really dive into a specific audience, their ears perk up. They know that you're speaking their language, which is the exact reason why my audience is the mortgage industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's not insurance. I don't know insurance. It's not doctors. It's not attorneys. It's the mortgage industry. And so people who come to me are in the mortgage industry because I've positioned myself within this niche, and it is an absolute niche. I've had people who are outside this niche, but like, dude, how in the world did you get into mortgage marketing and selling? It's such a like narrow thing that a lot of people would think would be like too limiting, and it's not. It's exactly where I want to be.
I love that, and what you're doing at Housing Wire now, and like you've popped on the scene. I'm sure a lot of people want to know this too, is like when you started posting your content and getting strategic, now that you've identified your audience in the mortgage industry and all that, what were some of the lessons you learned as you went through that, of like things that landed well that maybe you didn't think would, or you just go, man, this is what worked, and you guys should know about this?
Yeah. The first thing is you're going to suck at first, and that's okay.
Amen.
I think we all know that we're not going to just wake up, roll out of bed, and type a piece of content out and then it go viral or get all this love and praise and engagement and deals in the door. But but as soon as we press post, that's what we hope. Like, that's what we're like expecting. But we know it's not really going to happen that way. And so just understanding that there's a process to it and it takes time, and you get better just like with anything else you do. And so it's the reps that matter, and it's showing up that matters. It's not just showing up for like some like motivational quote, right? I'm not just saying like just show up, because that's what literally we talked about this last time. It's the more familiar you are, the more that people trust you. And the only way to become more familiar is to get more face time with your audience, right? So that's posting, that's engaging, that's commenting. And so just keep putting in the reps, because it's not hurting you. It's helping you. Even if you get 0 likes, people are still seeing it. Just keep going. So that, that's a really big one. One of the things I did when I first started too, was I was very much like, let me tell you how to do it. Right. Like I think a lot of us start there. Like, that's how we feel like we're supposed to write. Like, I'm going to give you some tips, and so listen to me. And so it comes off as more like this, preachy kind of like, I'm going to tell you. And so people's defenses, like regardless of like if it's intentional or not, they kind of get defensive on that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So like when I started seeing better results is when I just started like saying, like, instead of here are 3 things you should do today to whatever, right, to get a mortgage, to get your first home. Instead, I would either say, like, if I were starting over, here are 3 things I would do to prep myself for getting a home. Or I just closed a home for a first-time home buyer. We just got done signing, like, incredible. Here's what their feedback was on if they had to do it again. So you're telling me stories, these experiences, they're so much more impactful than just like preaching to somebody. And with that, having a story is so much more valuable than not. So being able to position that within some kind of like story framework is just really, really huge.
Let's talk about that, because I think this is where people struggle. I know for me, I'm still learning this, right? But like Donald Miller, the whole story branding, and it's coming out with a new one and all. I'm studying these guys, right? And then you got, Phil Jones is well known in our industry, of course, Renee Rodriguez and these guys. I'm like, okay, what are they doing? How are they putting it together? And like, I've just become this student because I realized I'm not a good storyteller yet. What I tell myself. Yet.
Exactly.
And I just keep putting reps in, and I notice at times it gets better. How have you gotten more comfortable or approach that storytelling? Because I think we all buy into stories much more. They always say stories, actually sell. And that's what people want.
Facts tell, stories sell. So there's a lot of truth behind it. What you said is actually exactly the way to do it. So it's exposure to other people who are doing it right. So I got a couple of things that these are some things that whoever's listening right now is trying to get better at content, or just who wants to take that next step can do if they're not already doing it. It's think about those people that you really know like that you really appreciate and enjoy, like, you know, Renee's of the world and Phil Jones, all those guys. And it doesn't have to be big names. It could be just good writers that you like and you like their content, and it gets good engagement. So my thing is like, make sure you're reading all their stuff. They're going to give you tips on how to do things. Like if you like people who are really good at LinkedIn or other platforms and they're giving you insights on how to be really good, do those things. So what I do is I create a swipe file. All right. And the swipe file just is swipe, meaning I'm going to steal it, but we're not really stealing it. Right. So like if there's a post that you really like, there's a couple things you can do. You can either screenshot it, dump it into your desktop folder, and then save it for later. You can go back and you can, like, when you're trying to content plan and create and figure out some things, it can give you angles. It can give you like post styles. Another thing is like when you're on LinkedIn, there's a lot of really good content, like how-tos, insights. And if you go to the top right of a post, there's those 3 dots and you can click that. And then there's a save feature and you can save that and go back to those later. Like that's huge, right? Like insights on whatever, whether you like the way the formatting was, the way they told the story. And so you kind of just start putting these pieces together and seeing how other people do it. And really that's what it is. It's just like a learning. It's just learning. It's like it's trying and learning and trying and learning. And for me, it was like so natural when we are in person telling stories. It's how we communicate as humans. Then as soon as we get on to social media, that stops. Right. And so like, I like to ask myself the question of like, how would I, if I were in person, how would I say this? And so I imagine I'm speaking to one person. And so my content has kind of taken this approach where it's now more focused on one-on-one. But imagine that I'm having a conversation like you and I are having right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to figure out what kind of story would fit with that. Or my mind now is just so focused on like, this is a content opportunity because I've have so many reps. I'm doing this all the time that I can just like save that on my notes on my phone, which is like, this is a good opportunity. So like if you think of something, pull your phone out, open your notes app or whatever you have, and just jot the story down, jot the idea down, whatever, and then develop it a little bit later. But those just practice.
Yeah. The reps and the notes.
Reps and notes.
One thing I've been doing, I don't know how you've engaged, but like, you know, I've heard so many people share on ChatGPT, right? And like, you got to make it your voice and you got to do these things. So I'm just putting reps in every day, and I just go in there intentionally, and I use the talk button because for me, it just makes it a lot easier.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I just talk through and, hey, you know, here's what I'm thinking about today, chat. Hope you're having a great day. And think about this concept. I read this post, or I saw this quote over here. This inspired me. Maybe I take a screenshot and drop it in there too. And like, hey, here's a visual of it. And, you know, I feel called to add to it, like give them credit. I'm going to give them credit for it if it's something I'm really using of theirs. And I just start sharing things. And I've started putting in like, hey, let's use the Donald Miller framework. Or, you know, like how would Phil Jones approach that with like, you know, exactly what to say? Or, you know, Renee has this framework over here. And like, how can I put this into there and make it my own? And I take it and like you said, and then I drop it over my notes, kind of massage it through. Like, so it's not what I normally would just, well, let me just type out this post. I don't ever type out a post.
Love it, man.
Like
it's killer.
Because for me, it's not, I use the audio button.
Yeah.
For a lot of them. And then many of them I'll just copy and paste so I can format them correctly, like into my email. And I'll go, okay, this needs a space. This needs a space. Sometimes, you know, if I'm on my phone, which I am a lot, I use emojis because I love emojis. Like if I text you, you're going to get an emoji. So I say, it's like,
great.
Why would I not post some emojis when if I'm texting you, you're going to get some emojis in there.
Yeah.
I was like, that's my brand part of me. And do you do some of that? Because I know, man, I get tons of questions on AI and chat and all that. Do you put some of that through it? And is there a process you use to go, you know, I'm here, but man, I just think it could be better. Like, chat, help me make this better. And use this other framework maybe to combine all that. I've been doing that a lot to help me improve.
Yeah, man, I really do. I think it's great for those use cases that you're saying, right? Where like you can see how somebody else might take this content and go a little bit different direction. It's so valuable to see how like some great communicators do those things. You know, I like to take my own content and load it into, you know, like my content over the past year or whatever and load it into ChatGPT and, ask questions about it and how could it improve. And so using it as like a teacher and being able to get insights into it, but also like, AI is doing what the automation. So like when we talked about like automated posts by the companies, that was a time saver. The reason that people do that is because it's a time saver. The reason that
Right.
marketing teams made that a priority was that their loan officers, their sales teams really wanted to be able to be on social and not to have to worry about posting because there's so little time to do that, right? AI has given us the opportunity to be able to do that. And so if we figure some of those things out, like you just said, like that is a killer strategy to be able to utilize a tool that can save significant amount of time without reducing too much of the quality, right? Because you're going to get really good quality, but if you really fine tune it, like you're saying, man, you can come up with some really killer stuff. So I love that framework, man. That's awesome.
What's sharing with people? It's like, I open up the playbook and I was like, man, I'll teach you everything that I'm learning and doing. Because guess what? In 90 days, I'm going to learn something new and I'm going to pivot and go that way. And you got to execute.
Yep.
I don't know if you get this question a lot, but I get it. It's like, how often should I post? When should I post? Is there a magic time? And all this stuff. How are you seeing that? Because I see you pop up in my feed. You're kind of early like me a lot of days. I typically see you're one of the first people. I'm like, cool. He's in the game today.
Yeah. So my answer to that question is post every single day. The whole listen, posting. So let's just go for the easy one real quick. The time that I've found the most the best results is between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So try it out, but hey, that might not be the best time for you. But in the morning, if I post in the morning, I get more at bats. The earlier that I post, the more people are going to see it. If I post late in the afternoon, people are with their families, people are going to bed, whatever. It's going to be a lot less opportunity, right? So that one is pretty easy. That's my time. It's worked really well. I've seen other people have success with it. Definitely recommend it.
I second that. I like the early, and I'm one of the viewers. So if your target audience, especially you, executives and people in the mortgage biz that are up early, like, I'm up early. I'm going to check that off, and I'm not getting back on there for hours.
Right. Well, you think like they might be getting who reads your content? Is it like are they getting ready for work? Are they sitting down having a coffee or something and scrolling real quick? Are they right before they get to their desk and getting on work? There's people have their processes. And so like, I just want to be the one that shows up. Right.
Right.
But here's the thing about the how often should I post deal? So I would ask this question. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering how often should I post, this is what I would say. The first question is, do you want to make money with LinkedIn or whatever social media platform? Hopefully the answer is yes. I think it should be, because you can make, you're able to scale all of your efforts through social platforms. And so it makes good business sense, helps develop your brand at scale, relationships and trust at scale, all those things. So if you want to get more business, then the answer for that question is to post as often as possible. I mean, 7 days a week, go for it. Like Saturdays are some of the best days. Like literally probably made more money on Saturdays than any other day of the week. And so the whole let's take the weekend off. Yeah, it's Sundays too. Sundays have been good as well. Mm-hmm. So again, this goes back to what we've alluded to earlier this time, but our first session, it's the familiarity bias is the more that someone sees you, the more that person trusts you.
Yeah. So
that's the foundation of kind of what building a personal brand is. Like, it's how people get famous. So if we're talking about, and that's what we want. We want you to be famous in your community, in your area, in your niche, whatever it is. I'm not saying be famous on a global stage or a national stage, just in your corner of the internet, right? In your corner of social media. And when you're able to show up consistently And you can do that through posting content. You can do that through engaging with other people's posts. You get more FaceTime with more people. And so the more you do that, the more trust you build faster.
Yes.
So it's just a no-brainer to do it as often as possible. Is it annoying to have to write posts sometimes without knowing if there's going to be a return on that post investment? Yes, it can be. But as you keep doing it, you'll see more and more and more come from it. Like literally, like, I mean, if you think about it, like when we did our first LinkedIn session in January, we had a lot of fun, had some immediate, excitement about it. But I've also had like people still reaching out like a month plus later, right? Like, and that continues to happen and continues to happen. And so it's really hard to say one post did this or that, but when you string all of those posts together over time, whether you think so or not, you become like famous in your own little corner, and that fame brings trust and potential business opportunities with it.
Yeah, I think I always say it's not as crowded as we think it is, and everybody's like, oh, if I build a brand, if I post my videos and share this or share that, I'm like, can I just tell you how few of those I actually see and I watch? When somebody stands out, just like your story. I mean, Dan, literally, when you came on the scene, you started posting, you got intentional, you started doing this every day. I'm like, it just causes you to go, who is this? What are they doing?
Yeah.
And then you get to make this decision of like, do I want more of their feed, want more engagement with them or not? And I was like, look, the reality is we're all afraid, I think, and I was there, of offending people. Like they're going to opt out, unsubscribe, and all those kind of worlds. Like they were never buying from you anyway.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
So why not get your message out? Yesterday, a big day for us, we had Grant on, and Grant sharing this. He's like, best known beats best, because if you're known, you get a shot. You get an opportunity. You get a phone call. And he's like,
that's good.
No one knows. So in the mortgage business, let me just tell you, your low rates, you think, your compensation, your speed at which you do things, like all these things we think sell the customer, is not actually how they make decisions. I want you to just think about that. And if you're not the best known in your market and you never got the phone call because they called somebody else because they saw them on social or saw them on, somewhere, and they go, well, I just got to call Dan. Like, I saw Dan worked with my neighbors or somebody down the street, goes to my church or whatever. Like, I'm just going to call them. Who knows? Is Dan the best or not? Like, that is very relative and subjective to what's happening. And, I share that with everybody just because if you're not known, you've just already limited the potential of people you can ever help and serve. And my friend Neil always shares this. It's like, if you really believe in how good you are in the product and the service and all the things that you are awesome at, and you are the best, like that's what you believe, and you don't tell people about it, that's one, selfish, and two, it's a horrible way to market and do business.
Horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Like, people will brag on you with testimonials and tell how great you are, so you don't have to say how great you are. Like, that's the game, my friend. So anyway, I had to interject that because I'm just like, this full circle of like, when I share things, you literally just hit that on the head for like anybody listening. It's why you do this.
Yeah. And a lot of what I hear so often, and I understand it, but what I hear so often is a reluctance to share their wins because it seems like they're being boastful or prideful, and that's not a good thing to be. And the reality is the opposite. So there's a way to be annoying. There's a way to come across as cocky and arrogant, and that be a turnoff. But that's not what I'm saying. So like, I've had this happen a number of times where I'm literally having a conversation with somebody that I thought I knew. I mean, I do know them, but I didn't know their like actual history of work. And we start talking and we start getting even deeper dive into like what it is they did. And then it comes out that they're like this absolute rock star. And the way that they were able to move and get to this position wasn't just because they were, lucky or whatever. They absolutely crushed it over a long period of time. And they had all of the receipts in the world to back it up. And then I just like stopped the conversation. I'm like, hold on. Like, why don't you say this ever? Like, ever in your content? Yeah. And the answer is always because I don't want to come across as like whatever. And listen, it's not the case, right?
That's right.
You have earned your spot. You have earned your opportunity to be able to share those things, and that those data points of how many loans you've closed, or how many families you helped get into houses, or years you've been in business, or whatever it is, like, share those. They're credibility pieces. You don't have to do it in a boastful way, but people start trusting you more when they see that other people are using you and doing business with you, and that you earned your spot, which we all know that they earned their spot, but unless you tell us, we just don't know. So
People don't know. They're so
big
focused on their own lives. And, when people share things like I was telling you about, the gentleman I had before this with Darren and the amazing real estate team he runs and all this, and I'm looking at his numbers, and fortunately he does a really good job, by the way. He's a great example of like how he just subtly shares it. He just puts it even in his bio, like we talked about on the last call. If you didn't see the last call, I'm putting a plug. He put who he helps, what he does, and he creates multimillionaire real estate agents. And then he talked about the 6 billion in sales. Like, it's all right there. Like, it is proof. It's undeniable to go, hold on, you sold what? And I think, dude, I love seeing that. And it's factual. Like, share the things that are there, move out of your own way. I think that's what today is all about, is like, how do you create content that converts? And we shared on the first call, like building your profile, getting everything optimized, going through some of that. I'm excited for the next one and talking about how we actually create some of these conversations and engagement so that we move people through, whether it's direct messaging or move them to a conversation offline. I think that to me is like the natural progression of, you've done all this work, you've done these things that we've taught you. And if you have, and you're listening, please implement those, because the way we structure this is it gives you time in between the calls to go try things, to go mess some stuff up. Like we talked about, you're not going to be good at it at first, but get in the game, start to see how it feels, what you like, what you don't like, who's your audience, switch it up a little bit, try some things. Then when you come to the next call, then we really get into some selling and prospecting, where I think a large part of my success has been over there, is like, how do you not be the sleazy person or the weird person in the DMs, and you actually create a conversation?
Yep. Bingo. Nailed it.
Fun. Dude, what do we leave out today on content that maybe I didn't ask, or you want to leave people with?
Yeah. So, I'll say this, that if I have a couple of resources, if anybody wants to have a little bit of help on how to create content, DM me on LinkedIn and I'll send you over the link. It's not there's no like email address to get it. I'll just send you the shared link. It's I got one that's a 50 different LinkedIn hooks you can use to kind of start your content that are focused specifically on LOs, right? So how you as an LO can create content and get people reading and engaging with it. Then there's a number of tools that people can use that can help kind of make the content creation process easier. All the way from, utilizing something like Canva or ChatGPT, all the way up to video editing that's like done super easy. And so if you want a list of those, like, DM me on that as well. The content conversation can go on forever and ever. There's just a lot of resources, but I would just say, just if you understand who your audience is and you try to learn from people who are already doing it, creating really good content, and just keep being a student and keep trying and keep pushing forward, your content's going to get better and better and better and better. And when you start putting these pieces together, like our first session of understanding your audience and your profile, your content leads to people clicking your name and going to your profile. And so that's why we started with the first one, so that you can make sure that when they land there, because of your really good content, that is going to also build that trust and keep them engaged, and hopefully land them in your DMs. So it all relates, guys. LinkedIn is the biggest opportunity in the world, I think, right now for our mortgage industry. And man, Brian, thank you, buddy, for what you're doing and getting this message out. It's good times.
I love it. I love it, brother. Well, I'll see you in Dallas. I'll be there at the Housing Wire Economic Summit. So I cannot wait. I am so thrilled on the timing of that. And that's going to be a great way to like actually meet you in person. I know I'm going to meet some other people that I've actually never met, but online we've created this connection and we talk all the time. And like, there's some leaders at some other organizations like, hey, are you coming? Because I forget, I feel like I've met them, but
right.
We have not. So we're all going to converge.
Can't wait, man. It'll be awesome.
Well, I appreciate you and everybody that's tuned in. If you were live, thank you so much. I saw some of the comments over there. Jamal, great to see you, my friend. And Nicholas, great to see you over on YouTube. And if you catch the replay, make sure you DM Dan or DM me, and we'll get you some of those resources we talked about. I always love to hear what was your biggest takeaway, what did the lesson you're going to go implement and take action on. And then if you have questions and things, let us know. The next call will be next month, and we'll build on that. And we're going to help you guys just move forward into those conversations and DMs so that you can actually prospect in a modern way and build relationships. So until then, take something you learned today, go implement this, share this with a friend, as I believe we need to help out all of our teammates, people we know. Maybe you're a loan officer and you've got real estate agents that would benefit from this. Share it. You get to be the hero. So make sure you guys go out there, have a great rest of your day.